about looking ahead to OpenSUSE 11.0, which is the distribution that's currently in development. The last FOSDEM happened very early in the development process of 10.3, which was released in September. This time we were released in June, so we are much further ahead in the development process of OpenSUSE 11. Oh, sorry, do I have to say it? Okay, that's fine. So the content of my talk will be shortly introducing the distribution to those that don't know it, which is basically the same as last year. I will shortly list the new features and will give some room for your feedback and discussions on what we can we improve, because we're still roughly 2 months before beta 1, so there's still room for your input. Okay, so let's start with the distribution introduction. What makes a distribution a distribution? The toughest part really is picking from all these great open source software there is. We have in our factory tree, I just checked, roughly 10,000 packages, which is RPMs in our case. We can only put around 800 on the CD. Of course, one of them is OpenOffice, but it's still less than a percentage of packages that are on the CD. The DVD has roughly 2,000, but it's still quite some that you can put. And on the build service, we have 30,000 packages. So, I mean, OpenSUSE is really huge. And if you get a promo DVD outside, you will get only so tiny portion of it, but you get the portion that most people will connect to OpenSUSE. So, of course, specific developments that we are doing for OpenSUSE are making up the distributions, like we have YAST, which is still very unique, even though it's open source and some distributions use it. We have CIRP, which is our software update stack. We have, of course, developments in the base system. Our distributions name their booting and give them top-level domains. We just do it and are booting faster than them, but we don't have top-level domains for them. And the community itself makes our distribution. So we're getting factory trees out there that are tested from the community, and we have alphas and betas that are tested and that are contributed to from the community. So the most important of these is the factory tree, which is our leading edge development. We're thinking it out roughly every 2 days, which is after every rebuild we push out the tree. The definite goal is that it's stable and actually running this implementation from factory installation. But of course, as with almost every open source project, when you get the bleeding edge, it's always interesting at times. There's a mailing list specific to those that are using it and are discussing it, which is also the main development discussion platform, basically. If you want to contribute to OpenSUSE and to the next version of it, OpenSUSE Factory at OpenSUSE.org is your goal. So, what's also very important for OpenSUSE is the build service. With 10.3, we integrated the repositories there as integral part of the distribution. So you have a module that lists the popular repositories, and you can, with one click, select latest Firefox, latest OpenOffice, latest Wi-Fi drivers, latest KDE, latest GNOME stable, latest games, I don't know. And they will be even more visible with 11.0 as they are more integrated into the registration workflow then. And we put more and more packages into the build service and maintaining them in the build service, and are only copying them back to the distribution. As before, we very often just copied into the build service and built it there, even though it wasn't maintained then. So, but the top priority for this year is creating a better infrastructure so that everyone can contribute to OpenSUSE and every part of OpenSUSE. Right now it's very easy to contribute to the KDE community, to GNOME Stable, to Compass, etc. But the base system is still set apart from it. I guess not too many people are really interested in hacking our compiler, but it should be possible, and that's basically our top priority goal. But there are several talks about how the build service will improve. And what we did since last FOSDEM is we have the online updates available to testing heroes. So in the past we had the problem that we released online updates that weren't tested well enough because we can't test on all setups and all hardware. So we're releasing them as soon as we build them, unless there are security updates and are under embargo. So if we have a new kernel that fixes some known problem, we put it out there and leave it there a week for heroes to test, and if no one had a problem with it, we release it to the common public. As Martin just said, we have roughly 1 million installations, so one broken kernel update is really a problem. So, okay. These are basically the new versions that are coming out from open source projects that will be in OpenSUSE 11.0. Most of them are already like kernel 2.6, 24, OpenOffice 2.4 is in beta right now. KDE4 is also in beta. GNOME 22 is beta 2, I think.
Yeah, beta 2 or 3 now.
Firefox 3 is going to be beta. GIMP 2.4 is already in. GCC 4.3 is release candidate, etc. So, yeah. 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 Sorry. Okay. The order was wrong, sorry. Okay, something broke in my. So what's beside these new versions that will be in every distribution that is released in June? We will have a damn fast software management, and I'm not joking here. If you release every SUSE version before, it's faster. It's not just faster than the previous one, it's just as fast as, or faster as competition. We will have KDE4. The alphas already use KDE4 as default KDE desktop, and if everything goes well, we will stick with it. We work on YAST suite in general. We had in August till October a YAST survey where like 8,000 people took part, and the biggest complaint they have about YAST is too slow. Even though the general consensus was that YAST is basically the key selling point of OpenSUSE. Thank you, Kurt. Another point that we will have live CDs as a trial medium. With the release of 10.3, we had KDE live CDs, but they weren't good enough to be shipped on general availability date. So we had to release them a month or 6 weeks later, and after that it wasn't that interesting anymore, so we have not yet seen big interest in live CDs, so this time we will really do it as a trial medium, the Alpha 2 already is released as live CD at the same time as the normal CD and DVD, and if still no one cares about live CDs, which is about it, I don't know. And this basically what makes up most of the rest of the talk is we're working still on simplifying the installation. So I guess it's sleeping all the time. So the installation improvements started already as plans with last FOSDEM, or were presented as plans for last FOSDEM. So the goal then was to have one CD so that you don't have to download 5 CDs or say DVD just to install a basic desktop. So we created the GNOME CD and the KDE CD for both 20, 32 and 64 bits. And this was English only, but during installation you could register a network if you had a cable and DHCP, and then you could download from our factory tree the remaining packages. And it wasn't used as, well, it wasn't appreciated as much as we hoped. So we thought that DVD is left aside, that everyone just downloads 600 or 700 megabytes and then downloads the remaining 300 megabytes of software he needs beyond the basic desktop. But our registration numbers shows that still DVD is the clear winner. So I looked basically, or we looked at what the reviewers out there, the journalists, said about the installation, and they were highly confused that the installation is still so complex and offers so much, and that you have download, you can register network, but not Wi-Fi or not that driver, and it was very confusing to them. And so my idea when I took over development of 11.0 was to go one step back and think, why do we need a CD, and can we make it better? Can we simplify it even more, or can we do it completely different? And so I will present shortly the installation of 10.3, because I assume that even those that know OpenSUSE don't install it every 2 days. And so I will briefly guide you to the old installation, or our stable installation. So it starts with picking a language. I hope this can be... Okay, then you get a media check, then you have to agree to the license. You pick if you want to install or update. You pick the online repos I talked about. You pick a time zone. You pick your GNOME desktop XFCE or server. Then you get a proposal, which includes the partitioning and the software selection. Then you can change your keyboard to a different language and your user interface language. Then you confirm. After that, you have to wait quite some time. During that, the packages are installed. After that, you enter the root password. You give your host name. You have to approve the network config. You test the network config. You download the release notes. You register. You create users. Here's even a mask missing. Then you see the release notes. Then you approve the hardware configuration. Then you get a congratulation, and then you're done. So we sat together in Prague, October 2007, and said, this is just too much. And we had a huge list. I mean, you can't read this, but it was full of action items and things that the developers of Just wanted to change. So the action items that went out of the workshop for the team was basically making it faster, making it sexier, making it simpler. Easy like that, easy as that. So, okay. Something had to be done about our installation. So we want to concentrate on the workflow of the installation and the look and feel. I could have shown you 9 screenshots and they would have looked roughly the same, which is good for consistency reasons, but which is bad for boring reasons. Or I mean, it's like 4 years and the web doesn't look like 4 years ago either. So unlike Google. So we want simple things like put more icons for easier parsing what is happening. We want simplify the progress bars, not so many pop-ups. We want to split better between when you install and when you administrate a system. Like, do you have to configure a printer during installation, or isn't this an administration task that you are doing when you buy a printer also, or is after installation really static? So we try to combine steps of these 20, so you need less clicks for the same result, and we try to pimp up the installer. There were several mock-ups and pictures. So, okay, these pimp up my installer is a wiki page where community members collected ideas and mock-ups for the installer, and it was basically a nickname for starting theming of Just and throwing everything out of the old style and do all Qt style sheets. And so this is now the current factory installation. You will see some flaws in the screenshot if you look very closely, but it's really work in progress. But you see at the first screen, you can pick language, keyboard layout, and license, and okay. Then you get icons in this mode. In the screen that is happening between the system analysts, you also get icons that show the progress, and then you select your time zone. You can zoom into that map, and then you pick your desktop or your installation, the system type. We added a server selection, which gives you just a text prompt without X, or you get a minimal X where you can only run TWM, or I'm not sure XFCE will stay, but we can discuss this after the talk. Or GNOME and KDE has been previous versions. And then I added one step, which is the partitioning, so that you can see during the installation that we will erase a partition and create another one, and you can switch. I mean, this radio button is highlighted; it's just not visible in the theme. But you can switch between these radio buttons and switch to LVM, so you can create volumes, or that you create a proposal based on volumes right in that ILO, or you go right into the extra partitioning mode where you can change mount points or add your /user from a different partition or whatever you like, or you can have a complete workflow where you can do everything. So, so then, that's the signal. You create a user account, and you have this option to use the password for the root password, because I talk to many people and they all use on their laptop the same password for root and the user, and it's one click less. So you don't need the root mask after that, unless if you unclick this option, then of course you get prompted for the root password. So then you get a summary, shouldn't be any need to change anything in here, because everything you changed, that I think people will change, were already asked for. And if you accept here, you have to approve it once again. This dialog is, I would claim, intendedly unthemed. And if you say install there, you will have to wait a bit, and after that, you're here. So, the other steps, and these are quite some, will be removed. They will not be removed, they will run non-interactively. So we will continue detecting your graphic card, we will configure it for the default settings, we will continue detecting your printer and configure it if we have a driver for it. We will continue setting a host name, even though it's a random one based on your MAC number. And but the other, okay, I should, sorry. So there are several steps that we can't do non-interactively, that most of them require network support. So the installation will create a desktop that is comparable to a live CD or live CD installation, just that you have your own user, your own partitioning, your own software selection. And if you go into your normal desktop online, like with Network Manager, configure your Wi-Fi, and the online, you can be prompted to register the update repositories, do the update, and I talked about registering the community repositories, and download additional software, like I want Tech Life, I want latest games, what's the name, Medal of War, that's not, sorry. But several administration tasks are no longer part of the installation then. So that includes opening the SSH port, configuring remote printers, set custom hostname, and these are basically these are the features we will lose, or reducing from 20 to 5 dialogues during the installation. So I hope, and this is basically what I want to discuss in the rest of the minutes, there are still 20, if this is okay with everyone, or if there are suggestions how to solve these problems. So this is basically the end of the talk. Yeah.
Is the system that launches the installer the live CD itself, or is it still different?
Currently with Alpha 2, you will have a DVD, one CD with only the software for KDE or GNOME Desktop, and we have a live CD, which has a live installer, which will have roughly the same or comparable workflow, but not full screen, for example. But if we stick with a one CD installation or installable CD is not yet clear. It will basically depend on the feedback we get during the beta phase.
So the question then is, why don't you just use the live CD and the installer there? It has already detected the screen and the printers and everything, and just use those settings that you already have from the live running system and use these to configure the system. Why do you still use two separate installer systems?
Because we want to have a DVD.
Couldn't you use the same live system for the DVD plus some additional packages?
The live system has a very big disadvantage. It needs quite some memory, and the install from a live system is much faster. But this is something that we want to change as well, because we want for the CDs or perhaps also for the DVDs, we want to install the base system from an image, and then only install hardware-specific and language-specific things by RPM. So the difference will be quite low. And I guess for 11.0 we will offer both At least this is my current strategy, and then see for the future what has been used really. Okay.
I have two questions. First one is, how do I set up the bootloader? If I choose not to get a bootloader, or if I want to be sure that my Windows is still on the hard drive.
So basically you have to scroll here, you have to scroll down, and after that in there here somewhere is the bootloader configuration you will create, and in there you can configure. All these links are creating dialogues where you can change. I mean, you can change the processor, and you can change partitioning still in here, and further below is the bootloader configuration.
Pretty much hidden, I think.
Sorry?
It's pretty much hidden.
It's pretty much hidden, but the bootloader is really not what you should change. I mean,
but wouldn't it be better if people see visually that their Windows is still on their hard drive?
yeah, but it's independent of the bootloader. I mean,
yeah, but just to get feedback. I think we have contact with people who write us mails and who always tell us, I don't know, I'm not sure if my Windows is marked away from my hard drive.
Actually, there's a very big problem we faced with these device names. The expert wants to see what device names he has, but the average user only knows the C or D. But there's no good solution that we came up with. So if there are suggestions for that, so the bootloader would basically only list you would be able to boot Windows, at least we would try to.
Okay. And the second question is, what happens when I click on a media player and I don't have a sufficient codec?
Yes.
Is that, can I include a payment repository or whatever automatically by clicking one button? Or
now I talked about you're doing online update, and after that we will give you the list of community repositories, which consist of build service repositories and a catalog that we pull from opensourcecommunity.org. And they kindly include Pacman in there. So you can register Pacman with a click, and then
so it's automatically possible.
We won't
by configuration process.
I wouldn't call it automatic, but it's just one click.
Okay.
So we wouldn't. I'm not sure if our legal department would be too fond if we install automatically.
No, I don't talk about installing it, but the user can choose it and presented the possibility to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Not during installation, but after in the desktop. Let me do from that side.
I see quite a lot of space on the right side of the screen, so why do I have to scroll down for the rest of the list? It should fit all.
Two columns.
Yeah, why not two columns? And have one overview at once.
That much space, you mean?
Yeah, well. Look, oops, sorry. Now it looks like there. How much is there below it? Do we see most of it now? 60%. So the other 40% should fit on the page. In a second column.
What you see here is system where there is no information with it, yet with partitioning you see some information, and with software, okay, but with software you see a lot, which most people probably do not either know what it is, or if they want to know it, they can click on it. So if you take these details, if you take them out, and just a small explanation, you have everything on one screen already.
Actually, the idea we discussed was to have a flag. These are all patterns,
Yes.
if you know. We discussed to have a flag in them if they are important or if they're just there. Because, for example, we have X Windows system, which is required by KDE. There's no way that you can have KDE without X Windows system. The same for base system. So it could be that we only list here the top patterns, and then this reduces. And to answer your point, this is 800, 600. Unless you install on an EPC, you will have more space, and then you will see more information on that. So I think the partitioning is really the most important because this is really the only thing where you can destroy something in trying on the user. So this will stay for the system is there just due to it. And only this the processor, which is not easy to
You
configure.
can then, for example, put the system much lower because most
Yeah,
people
this-
know what.
This, forget about it. That's just do it.
What about the idea of making this software text expandable? So it's not shown in the first place, but only when you click on a plus sign or something like that. Is that possible with the new text?
With a pull down or something.
A tree-like system.
Or tree.
Actually, if you click on software, you get a full dialogue where you can read a description of every pattern. I wouldn't put too much. I would either remove things from here that are unimportant or leave it as it is. But I think we will remove. I mean, up armor is some want it, some don't, or some want to be sure that they have it, some don't, and most of them are just to group software. I think Will was.
I see some mock-ups some weeks ago where we had several icons and just one detail plane, which could be useful. So we have an icon for partitioning and software, and if you hover it, then you see the details which you see right now. I don't know.
There is actually. Let's see if I. No, I don't. This is progress, I think, what you described. This is a progress widget, yes,
Exactly.
which has a list and an icon associated
But
with it.
maybe we could use that as well for this installation overview. So you can choose which are you interested in and then just see the details.
I don't. It would be ideal, even though I don't understand correctly what you're describing, but the challenge is that there are several.
You mean with the installation where you have the slideshow?
No, basically a menu concept where you can open and then you see software and it just pulls down.
Yes, on the first tab you have the slideshow with the presentation of OpenSUSE. On the second you have the installation about what is being installed. On the third I think you have the three tabs, I think. The third is the... not sure. So you could add a tab there and give the information about the system there.
Will?
Just think quiet.
Sorry. I'm just showing what Dirk referred to. Oops. The end-purpose interface improved a lot, by the way. End-purpose interface. It has hotkeys now, and it has management group. No. So, but while it starts, there was another question that I had to. Good.
Password.
I was going to suggest in the bit where the patterns are listed, as well as maybe having 2 or 3 columns for those, you could have a checkbox beside each pattern. So if you want to change it at that point, you don't have to click on software and go into the more detailed screen. You can just quickly remove the pattern with just like clicking the checkbox.
Do you think it's common thing to do? To remove patterns?
Yeah.
So let me ask this. What is the thing that you are not clicking before in the installation? If I go to back to the 10.3 installation, so I don't care here. Sorry, question?
I think that the decision whether I want to install GNOME or KE or FC or something That's all I want to configure for software. I don't even want to see the patterns on
Yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Yeah.
But he disagrees. So I would like to have a broader than one, with one. So who does media check?
Only if I have a problem with CD.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And it was very hard to find out who actually wanted to have this in the installation workflow. So who does not approve the license? So okay, this is new installation, you have to do it. You did? Yeah, it's awful. Good here, I don't care either.
Question, coolo, about the repositories. Other distributions use an approach where they define online repositories at the very beginning of the installation process, and they install software from online repositories during the main package installation.
Yeah, you can do that. You can just download a mini ISO, which is 40 megabytes, and install from FTP. And you get,
You can't add Pacman at that point stage though, because that's been deferred.
yes, which is
So
done for a very reason.
my question is, what was the decision? Why not to do it that way with the online selection at the front and then one installation, but to split it?
The reason was that we want to make it very easy for people to register such repositories, but at the same time we don't want to risk that people are installing something and they don't even know that they changed. Because you click on, yeah, I want Pacman, but then you get a completely different Amarok, and then you report the problem, and you said, no, I didn't change Amarok. And this is why we wanted to make this a complete, specific action to change your Amarok to the Pacman version. So that's political or just a decision for supportability.
Specific observation, we should make it very easy to find the legal steps and the community repositories afterwards.
I said that twice already. So it does not change the default. Okay. So this is basically the interesting screen I want to have. The default is overview, and in there you don't have system before someone mentions it. Who, for example, changes the keyboard layout to not have the default associated to the language? Almost half.
You mean one you already selected anyways?
If you have German, and it will pick German keyboard layout. But then many often, and I think I saw some German hands here, want to see English in screen, but still have a German keyboard in front of them.
The other way around.
Or the other way around.
But I thought in your new installer you selected both anyways.
Yes, but first is language, and if you change language to German, it will change the combo box for the keyboard as well. And in the new installation...
But you should just be able to change it there, you don't need the summary there, right?
No. It will be there as a summary, but it won't be there to change it. Yeah. So who changed content 3, the partitioning in here? And that's the reason why we added it. Okay, no discussion needed anymore. So who's going into the software selection at this point? I see. And now the question is, for what reasons?
For me, because I want to add several programs and I want to remove several programs. For example, I use Window Maker, not KDE or GNOME, so I install Window Maker. I don't want to have UpArmor, so I deinstall that. And some other things I want my specific way.
And get it over with once and for all.
Sorry?
And get it over with once and for all.
No, but you could just install. So the goal for LFO is to have the base system, which base, I mean basic desktop, as one image in a very short time, because it's no longer running LD-config and not opening the RPM database all the time. And then you can, after the installation, remove UpArmor or install.
For me, installation means that I can start with a system and not start configuring it. That's what I had to do with during the installation.
What's the difference between doing it during installation and after? It's the
Mindset.
same amount of time. What's the difference?
Yes, it's mindset.
So
Okay.
When I see the screen coming up,
Auto yes too.
I want
I
it
guess
to be run already.
Would it be, but the number of users who actually tweak the software install is probably much smaller than the number of users we want to reach, who will get very confused by all these things.
That could very well be, yes.
So wouldn't it be better to have, if you're going to spend the same amount of time, do it after the install rather than before, so people who are not power users like yourself, so they just basically do it and they have a working desktop.
I don't want to force them, of course, to do it, but I want to have the option myself to do it. Yeah.
Okay, so
That's why shouldn't I be doing it at that moment? The standard user, the non-power user, doesn't bother with it before or after either way.
I wouldn't be sure about that. I mean, the basic desktop is really the basic desktop, and there are people, or I mean, the average OpenSUSE user does care. Even my wife says, why is there car lines not installed? And the first thing is installing lines, which is a KDE game, for those who don't know, and those should fix that, not knowing. But what I want to ask you, even if the ability wasn't there to change, other than the 5 options I listed for desktop or system, would this be a huge problem or just a minor annoyance for you?
I would start wondering why I should install things that I don't want.
No, there's one option, minimal X, which would be for you because you want minimal X plus window maker minus UpArmor. So yes, you would have to install UpArmor to remove it afterwards.
Yes, and I would wonder why should I install things.
Because the installation would be fast as, twice as fast.
And I personally think that's not for me this is more important than the speed.
Okay. But still, big problem or minor annoyance?
It's a big annoyance.
Okay. Sorry, yeah?
Will there be a detailed installation option for people who love 20 clicks Sunday afternoon? No, not impossible.
They can create an UpArmor auto profile with their favorite XML editor and then run. That's for the profis then.
Sounds like the man behind me here wants a choice really early on. Do I want a basic installation or an expert installation? Do I have
the only options that are removed are those that I listed. OpenSSH, configure the details of X, etc. I won't, and I hope most agree, won't add in I'm an expert here because there's never someone who's not going to click it.
Question about compatibility. I always install with AutoJost. Is the XML file still compatible with in 11.0, or do I have to re-edit all my XML files? Because from 10.2 to 10.3, with the introduction of threads, it was a major effort re-editing all the XML files.
With threads, sir?
With the introduction of threads during the installation. Because in 10.1 didn't have threads, you have software selections.
Yes. Patterns, you mean?
Yes.
Patterns for selections.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we changed it once with 10.1 and we're still using patterns. And the Autrias developers are really fond on testing old profiles with new factory installations. So it should, unless if not, we will most likely provide a tool to change that. For patterns and selections, they were not too much, but slightly different, so it wasn't that easy. And it wasn't on our agenda that high. Autrias became really much more popular after that. Okay. Last question, sorry.
Do you already know which version of KDE you will ship?
359 will ship for sure.
359 for sure. And what about KDE 4, 4.1, 4.0 point something? You don't know yet.
Yeah.
So
We're giving a quick talk about it at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Tomorrow.
Bring your coffee with. Okay. Thank you everyone for the fruitful discussion and happy using.